If you're just getting started with sewing, it is so easy to feel overwhelmed by your sewing machine and all the techniques and terminology, but I want to share with you the important sewing skills that you should learn first so you are set up for success. Skill number 1 is threading your sewing machine. Before you can do any sort of stitching, your sewing machine needs to be correctly threaded, so both the top and the bobbin thread. Take your time doing this one, passing the thread through all the correct points on your sewing machine, because that will allow your thread to have the correct tension when stitching. Repetition is going to help you a lot here, and before you know it, your muscle memory will just kick in. So learning how to do this one right from the start will make sewing a lot easier because you will have less tension and stitching issues. Therefore, sewing will be a lot less intimidating. I used to have my instructions manual open right next to my machine for the first few times, and it just took all the stress and guesswork away, so it will be helpful if you do the same. Skill number 2 is stitching straight. If you've already had the chance to sit at your sewing machine and stitch a couple of things, tell me, what were you looking at? I'm gonna guess you were looking at your needle. So I've taught myself a little trick right from the beginning, and it works every single time. Once you have lowered your needle into your fabric, forget about it. All you need to do now is see where the raw edge of your fabric meets the guidelines on your needle plate, keep it in that line and just start stitching slowly. If focusing on that line is a little bit too hard for you, take a bit of masking tape and stick it there, because that will be a better visual. Then practice this on some scraps with a slow stitch setting, and once you get comfortable, you can increase your speed over time. Skill number 3 is backstitching. So learning how to backstitch, or another term for it is reverse stitching, at the beginning and end of your row of stitches is very important to keep your project intact. It makes your stitches stronger at those points and prevents it from unraveling, therefore your seams remain stronger for longer. Now it's very easy to forget this one, but very important for your project, so do keep it in mind. Skill number 4 is pressing. Now this used to be one of those things I used to skip until I posted a project online one day asking for help on how I could make it look better, and it was pointed out to me that pressing would help a lot. I didn't realize how big a difference it made until I actually started doing it. Immediately everything just looked so much better, and not just that, it helped a lot in the construction process as well, because everything just came together a lot easier. So learn how to press your seams and also the different types of fabrics, because some can take heat better than others. Skill number 5 is cutting accurately. Learning how to cut your fabric accurately will make the construction process a lot easier. So choose a sharp tool, something like scissors or rotary cutter, and use it only for cutting fabric so that your blade doesn't become dull quicker, or it may even become damaged. Understanding the grain lines on your fabric is also super important, because this is what's going to allow your finished project to hang or function like it should. So use pins or pattern weights to keep your paper template on top of your fabric while you are cutting out. My preference is to use the pattern weights as well as a rotary cutter, because I feel that this gives me a lot more control with my fabric and a lot more accurate cutting. Skill number 6 is seam allowances. Sewing patterns generally come with a seam allowance included, and it's something like a 1/4 inch or 5/8 of an inch. So keeping to the seam allowance will definitely make sure that all of your pattern pieces come together properly and your project comes out the correct size that it should. When I first started sewing, I had no idea that seam allowances were a thing, and I sewed pretty close to the edge of the fabric. Now that project has not withstood the test of time, so unfortunately I can't even show you the mess that I made back then. Skill number 7 is basic hand stitching. Now most of the sewing is done by a sewing machine, but there are occasions where hand stitching does come in handy. Knowing how to do basic stitches like a ladder stitch or a running stitch is super useful, because you can do things like secure linings and join fabric invisibly. You will probably come across some projects where you need to sew on buttons, and although a sewing machine can do this using a specific foot, knowing how to hand sew them on is a pretty cool technique to know. And this is coming from a younger self that always used to run to mommy to sew on buttons back onto my uniform when I was working for an airline. And if I didn't have mommy around, I would simply just use a safety pin on the inside to hold them in place. Skill number 8 is reading a pattern. Now unless you are making your own project up and putting it together as you go, choose a simple project, something like a tote bag or an elasticated waistcoat, because these will be a lot easier for you to learn how to read. Patterns have many markings to learn, but start with something simple and work your way up from there. Learn what all the markings are, like the notches, the darts, the bust points, and transfer all of these onto your fabric and then work your way from there. If there's something that you are unsure about, just stop and do a quick Google search, because you are not going to know everything the first time round. Remember, sewing is a journey and each of us go at our own pace. It's not something that you will master in your first sitting, so just take it step by step. And if you are ready to take your sewing to the next level, watch this video over here where I share how I learned how to sew clothes that fit my body. That's it from me today. Bye for now.